Captain Jake Morrison stared at the view screen of his ship, the horizon. The planet below looked like a green jewel floating in space. Tall mountains reached toward the sky, and thick forests covered the land like a soft blanket. Rivers ran through the valleys like silver ribbons. It was beautiful, but something felt wrong. "Captain, I'm picking up some strange readings," said Dr. Lisa Hayes from her station. She was the ship's expert on alien life forms. Her fingers moved quickly. Across her control panel, "There's something big down there. Really big." Jake walked over to look at her screen. The reading showed a massive heat signature deep inside the tallest mountain. It was huge, bigger than anything they had ever seen before. The heat pattern moved slowly, like a giant heart beating. "Could it be a volcano?" asked Lieutenant Steve Parker from the pilot's seat. Lisa shook her head. "No, this is different. The heat moves in patterns. It's alive." Jake felt his heart beat faster. In his 10 years of space exploration, he had seen many strange things, but this was new. This was different. "Take us down," he ordered. "We need to get a closer look." The horizon dropped through the planet's atmosphere like a falling star. The ship shook as it cut through the thick air. Below them, the mountain grew larger and larger. It was covered in strange crystals that sparkled in the sunlight. Some of the crystals were as big as houses. "Captain, look at this," said Engineer. Amy Rodriguez. She was young, but very smart. "These crystals are not natural. Someone made them. Someone with very advanced technology." Jake nodded. His crew was the best in the space fleet. If Amy said the crystals were made, then they were made. But who could make crystals this big? And why? The ship landed in a flat area near the mountain's base. The ground was covered in smooth black stone. It looked like glass, but it was stronger than steel. Jake could see that something very powerful had melted the rock long ago. "Suits on, everyone," Jake said. "We don't know what's out there." The team put on their spacesuits and checked their equipment. Each suit had air, heat, and protection from radiation. They also carried translation devices that could help them talk to alien life forms. Jake opened the ship's door and stepped. Outside, the air was thick and warm. His suit's systems told him the air was safe to breathe, but he kept his helmet on anyway. Safety first. The mountain rose up in front of them like a wall. It was so tall that Jake had to bend his head back to see the top. The crystals on its surface were even more beautiful up close. They were all different colors: red, blue, green, and gold. Some of them glowed with their own light. "This way," said Lisa, checking her scanner. "The life sign is coming from inside the mountain." They walked toward a large opening in the mountainside. It looked like a cave, but it was perfectly round. The walls were smooth and covered in more crystals. Strange symbols were carved into the stone around the entrance. "Can you read those symbols?" Jake asked. Amy studied them carefully. "They're very old. Older than anything we've seen before. I think they're a warning." "What kind of warning?" "Something about ... respect and danger. It's hard to tell." Jake looked at his team. They were all brave people who had faced danger before. But something about this place made him feel small. The mountain felt ancient, like it had been here since the beginning of time. "Stay close," he said, "and keep your weapons ready." They walked into the cave. Their suit lights cut through the darkness. The walls were covered in more crystals, and they reflected the light in amazing patterns. It was like walking through a rainbow. The cave went deep into the mountain. They walked for what felt like hours, always going down. The air got warmer as they went deeper. Jake could hear something in the distance. It sounded like breathing, but very slow and very deep. "Captain," Lisa whispered, "the life sign is getting stronger. Whatever it is, it's big." Really, really big. They turned a corner and stopped. In front of them was a huge cave, bigger than any building Jake had ever seen. The ceiling was so high that their lights couldn't reach it. And in the center of the cave, lying on a bed of crystals, was the most amazing thing Jake had ever seen. God, it was a dragon. But not like the dragons in old Earth stories. This dragon was real, and it was huge. Its body was as long as a football field. Its scales were golden, but they looked old and tired. Its great head rested on its front legs, and its eyes were closed. "My God," whispered Steve, "it's beautiful." The dragon's eyes opened. They were the color of liquid gold, and they were full of sadness. The great head lifted and turned toward the humans. For a moment, no one moved. No one even breathed. Then, the dragon spoke. The words came not as sound, but as thoughts in their minds. The translation devices in their suits helped them understand. "Who dares enter my domain?" the dragon asked. Her voice was like music, but it was tired and full of pain. Jake stepped forward. He was scared, but he was also the captain. It was his job to speak for his crew. "We are explorers from Earth," he said. "We come in peace. We didn't know anyone lived here." The dragon studied him with those golden eyes. "Earth," she said slowly. "I have heard of your world. Young, so very young. Like children playing among the stars." "We are young," Jake agreed, "but we learn fast. And we try to help when we can." The dragon made a sound that might have been laughter, but it was sad. "Help? You are small creatures with small lives. What help could you offer to one such as I?" Jake didn't know what to say. The dragon was right. They were small compared to her. But something in her voice made him want to try. "Tell us what's wrong," he said. "Maybe we can help. Maybe we can't, but we can try." The dragon looked at him for a long time. Then she slowly lifted her great head and looked toward the back of the cave. Jake followed her gaze and saw something that made his heart stop. There, in a nest of crystals and gold, were 3 enormous eggs. Each egg was the size of a small house. They glowed with soft light, but something was wrong with them. Dark spots moved under their shells like shadows. "My children," the dragon said, and her voice broke with pain. "The last of my kind. For 3,000 years I have waited for them to hatch, but they are dying, and I cannot save them." Lisa stepped forward. "What's happening to them?" "They are infected," the dragon said. "Creatures from the void have found their way inside. They feed on life itself. My fire, which once could burn away any evil, cannot reach them without destroying my young." Jake felt his heart break for this ancient creature. She was the last of her kind, and her children were dying. He looked at his team. They were all thinking the same thing. "We'll help," he said. The dragon looked at him with surprise. You are so small, so new to the universe. What could you possibly do that I, with all my power and knowledge, cannot?" Jake smiled. "We don't know yet, but we'll figure something out. That's what humans do." For the first time since they had met her, the dragon's eyes showed something other than sadness. They showed hope. Dr. Lisa Hayes could not sleep that night. She sat in the ship's lab, looking at the data they had collected from the dragon's eggs. The readings made no sense. The creatures inside the eggs were not like anything in their computer files. "Still working?" asked Dr. Ben Carter as he walked into the lab. He was the ship's doctor, and he looked as tired as Lisa felt. "These things are impossible," Lisa said, pointing at her screen. "Look at this. They exist in our world, but also in another place at the same time. It's like they're here and not here." Ben sat down next to her. "Maybe that's why the dragon can't reach them with her fire." "Exactly. Her fire works in our world, But these creatures live between worlds. They're in a quantum phase state. Ben rubbed his eyes. Can you say that in normal words? Lisa smiled. They're like ghosts. You can see them, but you can't touch them. Except they're not really ghosts. They're real, but they exist in a different way. So how do we fight a ghost? That was the question that kept Lisa awake. She had been thinking about it for hours. The dragon had tried everything she knew. 3,000 years of knowledge and power, and none of it worked. Maybe we need to think like humans, Lisa said. What do you mean? The dragon thinks in old ways, ancient ways. Her people learned to do things one way, and they kept doing them that way for millions of years. But humans are different. We change. We adapt. Ben nodded. We make it up as we go. Exactly. And sometimes that works when old knowledge doesn't. The next morning, Captain Jake called a meeting. The whole crew sat around the table in the main room. Jake looked tired, but his eyes were bright with purpose. The dragon told me her name last night, Jake said. She's called Vorthik. She's been alone on this planet for 500 years, waiting for her eggs to hatch. 500 years, whispered engineer Amy Rodriguez. I can't imagine being alone that long. She's not alone anymore, Jake said. We're going to help her. But first, we need to understand what we're fighting. Lisa stood up and turned on the big screen. It showed pictures of the creatures inside the eggs. They looked like black smoke with red eyes. These are called void spawn, Lisa said. They eat life energy. They start small, but they grow by feeding on living things. If they finish eating, the baby dragons, they'll be strong enough to break out and find more food. More food like us? Asked Steve. More food like everything on this planet. And then they'll spread to other worlds. The room went quiet. Everyone understood now. This was not just about saving 3 dragon eggs. This was about stopping something that could destroy worlds. So how do we kill them? Jake asked. We can't. Not with normal weapons. They exist in quantum phase state. Our bullets and lasers pass right through them. Amy raised her hand. What about the nanobots I've been working on? Lisa turned to look at her. Amy was young, only 25, but she was one of the smartest engineers in the fleet. She worked with technology so small that you needed special microscopes to see. What kind of nanobots? Lisa asked. I've been trying to make robots that can change their quantum state. It's for fixing ship computers from the inside. But maybe they could work on these creatures too. Lisa felt her heart beat faster. You? Mean nanobots that can become ghosts like the void spawn? Something like that. If the nanobots can match the quantum phase of the creatures, maybe they can touch them. And if they can touch them, maybe they can destroy them. Jake leaned forward. How long would it take to make these nanobots? Amy thought for a moment. I work day and night, maybe 3 days, but I'll need help. You'll have all the help you need, Jake said. What else do we need to know? Lisa pulled up another image. This one showed the inside of a dragon egg. It looked like a beautiful garden, but with shadows moving through it. Someone will have to go inside the eggs, Lisa said. The nanobots can't work on their own. They need someone to guide them. Go inside? Ben asked. How is that possible? The same technology that makes the nanobots small can make a person small. We have shrinking tech for emergency repairs. But this would be different, more dangerous. Jake nodded. How dangerous? The person going in would be the size of a grain of sand. The inside of the egg is like an alien world, and the void spawn will attack anything that doesn't belong there. Steve stood up. I'll do it. Steve, you don't understand how dangerous this is, Lisa said. I understand that those baby dragons will die if we don't try. And I understand that Vorthik has been alone for 500 years, waiting for her children. I won't let them die. If I can help it. Jake looked at his friend. Steve had saved his life more than once. He was brave, smart, and never gave up. If anyone could do this impossible job, it was Steve. We'll need to talk to Vorthik first, Jake said. We need her help to make this work. 2 hours later, they were back in the dragon's cave. Vorthik lifted her great head when she saw them coming. You have returned, she said, and her voice was full of hope and fear. We have a plan, Jake said, but we need your help. He explained about the nanobots and the shrinking technology. He told her that Steve would have to go inside the eggs to fight the void spawn directly. Vorthik was quiet for a long time. Her golden eyes looked at each of the humans. In all my years, she said slowly, I have never heard of such a thing. Your technology is so different from ours. We use magic and the power of stars. You use tiny machines and changing science. Will it work? Asked Lisa. I do not know. But I know this. My magic alone has failed. Perhaps your human way of thinking can succeed where ancient dragon wisdom cannot. What do you need from me? Vorthik asked. Your fire, Amy said. Not to burn the creatures, but to power the nanobots. We need a steady source of energy that can work in quantum phase state. Vorthik's eyes grew wide. You want to combine dragon magic with human technology? Is that possible? Jake asked. Vorthik was quiet again. Then she began to make a sound that the humans had never heard before. It was deep and musical, like singing, but more beautiful than any human voice. I am calling my cousins, she said when the song ended. Other dragons who still live among the stars. If we are to try this impossible thing, I will need their help. There are other dragons? Lisa asked. Not many. Perhaps 20 in all the galaxy. But they will come if I call. We are family. Jake felt something he had not felt in a long time. Real hope. They had a plan, they had help coming, and they had a dragon who was willing to trust them. How long until your cousins arrive? He asked. 2 days, Vorthik said. Is that enough time to prepare your nanobots? Amy nodded. I'll be ready. Then we begin, said the dragon. But know this, brave humans. What you are trying to do has never been done before. You are risking your lives for creatures you have never seen, to save a race that is not your own. Jake smiled. That's what humans do. For the first time in centuries, Vorthik smiled too. Amy Rodriguez had not slept in 2 days. Her eyes were red and her hands shook from too much coffee, but the nanobots were ready. They sat in a small container, no bigger than her thumb. Millions of tiny machines, each one smaller than a virus, waiting to save 3 dragon lives. Are you sure they'll work? Asked Dr. Ben Carter. He was checking Steve's special suit for the 10th time. As sure as I can be, Amy said. I've tested them on computer models. They can shift into quantum phase state and back again. But this is the first real test. Steve Parker stood in the middle of the lab wearing the strangest suit anyone had ever seen. It looked like a normal spacesuit, but it was covered in tiny lights and wires. The helmet had a special screen that would let him see the quantum creatures. How do you feel? Asked Captain Jake. Like I'm about to become the smallest person in the galaxy, Steve said. But ready. Dr. Lisa Hayes was at her computer, watching the readings from the dragon eggs. The creatures are getting stronger. We need to hurry. Outside the ship, something amazing was happening. 3 more dragons had arrived during the night. They were different from Vorthik. One was silver and seemed to be made of starlight. Another was deep blue like the ocean. The third was smaller and green, like spring leaves. Jake and his team walked out to meet them, even after seeing Vorthik. The sight of 4 dragons together took his breath away. They were sitting in a circle around the eggs, their great heads close together. They were talking in their musical language. "Humans," said Vorthik when she saw them coming. "Meet my family. This is Nethys of the Silver Stars, Koreth of the Deep Waters, and young Zephyr of the Green Worlds." Young Zephyr was still bigger than a house. Jake wondered what old dragons looked like if this one was considered young. "We have heard of your plan," said Nethys. Her voice was like wind chimes. "It is brave, but very dangerous. All the best." "Plans are dangerous," Jake said. Koreth made a sound like distant thunder. "We will help however we can." "These children must live. We're ready to begin," Amy said. She held up the container of nanobots. Vorthik moved closer to the first egg. It was the largest of the 3, and the dark shadows moving under its shell were bigger and more active than the others. "This one is the worst," she said sadly. "The creatures inside are almost fully grown." Steve walked up to the egg. Even lying down, it was taller than he was. The shell looked like it was made of pearl and gold, but the dark spots made it look sick. "Remember the plan," Lisa said into his radio. "Get inside, find the baby dragon, and protect it while the nanobots do their work. Don't try to fight the creatures directly. Just stay alive and keep moving." Steve nodded. He put his hand on the shrinking device attached to his belt. "I'm ready." Amy opened the container and poured the nanobots onto the egg's shell. They looked like silver dust, but Jake knew each speck was actually a tiny robot. The nanobots spread across the shell and then seemed to disappear as they shifted into quantum phase. "Shrinking in 3, 2, 1, said Amy. There was a flash of light, and suddenly Steve was gone. Not invisible, but actually gone. He had become so small that they couldn't see him anymore. "Steve, can you hear me?" Lisa asked into her radio. "I'm here," came Steve's voice, but it sounded strange and far away. "I'm on the shell. It's like standing on a mountain made of crystal. I can see cracks where I can get inside." "Be careful," Jake said. "We're monitoring your suit. Everything looks good so far." Steve's voice came through the radio as he moved. "I'm going through a crack now. It's dark inside, but my suit lights are working. The air feels thick, like swimming through honey." Lisa watched her computer screen. It showed Steve's location as a tiny dot moving through the egg. "You're doing great. The baby dragon should be about 100 meters ahead of you." "I can see something," Steve said. His voice was full of wonder. "There's light ahead. Beautiful light." What Steve saw when he reached the center of the egg was beyond description. The baby dragon was curled up like a sleeping cat, but it was the size of a truck from Steve's tiny viewpoint. Its scales were gold like its mother's, but they glowed with their own inner light. It was the most beautiful thing Steve had ever seen, but the beauty was being destroyed. Black creatures moved across the baby dragon's body like living shadows. They had red eyes and mouths full of sharp teeth. They were eating the light from the dragon's scales, and wherever they fed, the scales turned dark and dead. "I found it," Steve whispered. "The baby is beautiful, but those things are killing it." "Deploy the nanobots," Amy said. Steve pressed a button on his suit, and the nanobots spread out around him like a silver cloud. At first, nothing happened. Then the nanobots began to glow, and suddenly they could touch the shadow creatures. Battle that followed was like nothing anyone had ever seen. The nanobots attacked the void spawn in waves, but the creatures fought back. They were fast and smart, and they had been feeding for months. Some of them were as big as Steve's tiny form. "The nanobots are taking damage," Amy reported. "I'm losing connection with some of them." "Steve, get out of there," Jake ordered. "Not yet," Steve said. "The baby dragon is waking up." It was true. The young dragon's eyes opened for the first time. They were gold like its mother's, but brighter. The baby dragon saw Steve and made a sound like a kitten purring. "It knows I'm trying to help," Steve said, and his voice was full of emotion. The baby dragon tried to move, and when it did, golden light poured from its scales. The light hit the void spawn, and they screamed. They tried to run, but the nanobots were waiting for them. "The dragon's light is helping the nanobots," Amy said excitedly. "They're working together." Outside the egg, Vorthik lifted her great head. "Something is happening. I can feel my child's life growing stronger." The 4 dragons began to sing together. Their voices created a harmony that seemed to shake the very air. The song was old, older than human civilization, and it spoke of life and hope and the courage to face darkness. "The song is giving power to the nanobots," Amy said, watching her readings. "Dragon magic and human technology are actually working together." Inside the egg, Steve watched as the last of the void spawn were destroyed. The baby dragon's scales were bright gold again, and it was moving normally. It looked at Steve with curious eyes and made happy sounds. "It's working," Steve said. "The baby is healthy." "Time to come out," Lisa said. "Your air is running low." Steve made his way back to the crack in the shell. As he left, he heard the baby dragon making sounds like it was trying to say goodbye. A few minutes later, there was another flash of light, and Steve was back to normal size. He pulled off his helmet and smiled the biggest smile Jake had ever seen. "One down," Steve said. 2 to go." But even as they celebrated, they could see that the other 2 eggs were getting worse. The shadows under their shells were moving faster, and the egg's glow was getting dimmer. "We need to work faster," Vorthik said. "My other children don't have much time left." Jake looked at his team. They were tired, but they were not giving up. They had saved 1 dragon. Now they had to save 2 more. "Amy, how many nanobots do we have left?" he asked. "Enough for both eggs, but barely. And we lost a lot of experience data when the first batch was destroyed. Then we'll have to be smarter about the next one," Jake said. "Steve, are you ready to go again?" Steve was already putting his helmet back on. "Let's save some dragons." The second egg was different from the first. When Steve got close to it, he could feel something wrong. The shell was colder, and the shadows inside moved in angry patterns. "This one has been infected longer," Dr. Lisa Hayes said, looking at her readings. "The creatures inside are stronger." Engineer Carlos Rivera stood next to Steve, putting on his own special suit. Carlos was quiet and careful, good at solving problems that seemed impossible. Jake had asked him to help with the second egg because 1 person might not be enough. 2 people going in together has never been tried, Amy warned them. "Your suits might interfere with each other in quantum space." "We'll be careful," Steve said. He looked at Carlos. "Ready, partner?" Carlos nodded. "Let's go save a dragon." Amy had worked all night to improve the nanobots. The new ones were smarter and could learn from fighting the void spawn. She called them adaptive nanobots. "These robots will change their attack patterns based on what the creatures do," she explained. "They should work better than the first batch." Outside, the 4 dragons were still singing their ancient song, but now their voices sounded tired. Vorthik's golden scales were not as bright as before. Using her magic to help the nanobots was draining her power. "Mother Dragon is getting weak," whispered young Zephyr. "We must finish this soon." Jake knew they were running out of time. The dragons couldn't keep up their magic forever, and the void spawn were getting stronger every hour. "Begin shrinking sequence," Amy said. Steve and Carlos stood close together. There were 2 flashes of light, and both men disappeared. "Steve, Carlos, report," Lisa said into her radio. "We're both here," Steve's voice came back. The shell is different this time. It feels angry. I can see the cracks to get inside, Carlos added. But they're smaller. We'll have to squeeze through. The two tiny humans made their way into the second egg. What they found inside was worse than anything they had expected. The baby dragon was there, but it was not alone. There are two dragons. In this egg? Carlos said, his voice full of surprise. Twins, Steve added, but they're in trouble. The two baby dragons were wrapped around each other like they were hugging. But the void spawn were everywhere. There were hundreds of them. Maybe thousands. They covered the baby dragons like a moving blanket of darkness. Deploy nanobots now, Lisa ordered. The silver cloud of tiny robots spread out around Steve and Carlos. This time, the nanobots moved differently. They formed groups and attacked the void spawn in organized waves. When one group of creatures learned to fight them, the nanobots changed their tactics. But there were so many void spawn that the battle was harder than before. The creatures seemed to know that this was their last chance. If they lost here, they would never get another opportunity to feed and grow strong. The nanobots are taking heavy damage, Amy reported. I'm losing whole groups of them. Inside the egg, Steve and Carlos had to dodge flying void spawn that were trying to attack them directly. The creatures had figured out that the humans were controlling the nanobots. They're smarter than we thought, Carlos said, rolling away from a creature. With glowing red eyes, one of the baby dragons opened its eyes and saw the two humans fighting to save its life. The little dragon made a weak sound, like it was trying to help, but didn't know how. It's okay, little one, Steve said softly. We're here to help. The baby dragon's scales began to glow with golden light, just like its sibling had done. But this time, something different happened. The second baby dragon opened its eyes too, and its scales glowed with blue light. The two different colors of light mixed together and created something new. Where the gold and blue light touched, the void spawn didn't just scream and run away. They turned to dust and disappeared completely. The twin dragons are working together, Carlos said in amazement. Their combined light is stronger than anything we've seen. Outside the egg, the four adult dragons felt the change. Their song became louder and more powerful. Vorthic's scales began to shine brighter again. My children are fighting back, she said with joy and pride. The nanobots, powered by the twin dragon's light and the adult dragon's song, began to win the battle. They moved like a silver army, destroying every void spawn they could find. But just when it looked like they would succeed, something terrible happened. The largest void spawn, one that had been hiding in the darkest part of the egg, attacked the nanobots' control center. I'm losing connection, Amy said, panic in her voice. The main control nanobots are being destroyed. Without the control, nanobots, the other tiny robots, began to act randomly. Some kept fighting, but others just stopped working. The battle was turning against them. We need to get out of here, Lisa said. The mission is failing. No, said Steve firmly. We're not leaving these babies to die. Carlos looked at his friend. What do you want to do? We finish this ourselves. Steve and Carlos looked at the giant void spawn that was destroying their nanobots. It was bigger than both of them put together, and its red eyes burned with hate. But they had something it didn't have. They had each other, and they had human stubbornness. On three, Steve said. 1, 2, 3. Both men activated the emergency power cells in their suits. The cells were meant to be used only if their main power failed, but Steve had a different idea. He and Carlos grabbed hands and flew straight at the giant void spawn. The creature saw them coming and opened its mouth full of sharp teeth. At the last second, Steve and Carlos separated and flew past it on both sides. Their power cells, overloaded and sparking, stuck to the creature's body like bombs. Get down, Carlos yelled. The power cells exploded with bright white light. The giant void spawn screamed as the light tore through it. The explosion was so bright that it lit up the entire inside of the egg. When the light faded, the giant creature was gone, and with its death, something amazing happened. The remaining nanobots, no longer being attacked by their biggest enemy, began to work together again. They spread out and destroyed every last void spawn in the egg. The twin baby dragons, now free from the creatures that had been eating their life force, stood up for the first time. They looked at Steve and Carlos with bright, intelligent eyes. One dragon glowed gold, the other blue, and together they made the inside of the egg look like a rainbow. "Mission accomplished," Steve said, though his voice was shaky from the explosion. "Time to come home," Jake said with relief. A few minutes later, both men were back to normal size. They were tired and their suits were damaged, but they were smiling. "2 eggs down," Carlos said. "1 to go." But when they looked at the third egg, their smiles faded. It was barely glowing at all, and the shadows inside were moving very slowly. The baby dragon inside was dying. "We might be too late," Lisa said quietly. Vorthik looked at the third egg with tears in her golden eyes. "My youngest child, the smallest and weakest. It may not survive long enough for another rescue." Jake looked at his team. They were exhausted, their equipment was damaged, and they had used most of their nanobots. But they had come this far, and they were not going to give up now. "Amy, how many nanobots do we have left?" "Maybe enough for one more mission, but barely." "Then we make this one count," Jake said. "Steve, Carlos, can you do it one more time?" Both men nodded without hesitation. "Let's save the last dragon," Steve said. The third egg was dying. Everyone could see it. The beautiful pearl and gold shell had turned gray, and the light inside was so weak it barely showed through the cracks. The shadows of the void spawn moved slowly, like they were already full from eating the baby dragon's life. "We might be too late," Dr. Ben Carter said sadly. But Captain Jake Morrison was not ready to give up. He had seen his crew do impossible things before. "Amy, what about the nanobots? Can we make them stronger somehow?" Amy Rodriguez looked at her remaining nanobots. There were so few left, and they were not the improved kind. These were basic models, the same type that had barely worked on the first egg. "I have an idea," she said slowly. "But it's crazy. The best ideas usually are," Jake said. "What if we don't just send the nanobots in? What if we send all our technology? Everything we have?" "Doctor." Lisa Hayes looked up from her computer. "What do you mean?" "Our ship's computer, our medical equipment, our engines. Everything has tiny machines in it. If I can connect them all together and send them into the egg, we might have enough to save the baby dragon." "That would mean destroying our ship," said engineer Carlos Rivera. "The ship can be rebuilt," Jake said. "The last dragon baby cannot." Steve Parker was already putting on his suit again. "I'll need help for this one. The egg is too dangerous for one person." "I'll go with you," Carlos said. "Me too," said Amy. "If we're sending all our technology, I need to be there to control it." Jake shook his head. "Too dangerous. 3 people in quantum space has never been tried. 3 baby dragons have never been saved by humans before either," Amy pointed out. Outside, the 4 adult dragons were getting weaker. Vorthik could barely lift her great head. Her golden scales were pale and dull. The magic she had been using to help the humans was draining her life force. "We cannot keep this up much longer," said Nethys the silver dragon. Her starlight scales were flickering like candles in the wind. "Just a little more time?" Jake asked. Young Zephyr, the green dragon, moved closer to the dying egg. "Let me help too," she said. "I am young and my magic is fresh. I can give my power to save this child." "No," said Vorthik weakly. "You might die." "Then I die saving family," Zephyr said firmly. That is a good death. Jake felt his heart swell with respect for these ancient, noble creatures. They were willing to die for their young, just like humans would. Amy, start connecting all our technology, he ordered. Steve, Carlos, get ready. We're going to save this baby dragon or die trying. Amy worked faster than she had ever worked before. She connected the ship's main computer to the medical scanners, the engine control systems to the food makers, the air recyclers to the communication equipment. Everything that had tiny machines in it was linked together. This is either going to be the greatest rescue in history or the biggest explosion, she said. Let's find out, Steve said. The three humans stood together near the dying egg. Amy carried a special device that would let her control all the ship's technology from inside the egg. Steve and Carlos had weapons in case they met void spawn that the machines could not handle. Shrinking in 3, 2, 1, Amy said. 3 flashes of light, and all 3 humans disappeared. Report, Jake said into his radio. We're inside, Steve's voice came back, but it sounded strange. This place is different from the others. It's cold and dark. I can barely see anything, Carlos added. Amy, can you activate the technology? Doing it now, Amy said. All around the ship, machines began to shut down as their tiny robot parts separated and became available for the rescue. The lights went out, the engines stopped humming, and the air recyclers went quiet. It was like the ship was giving its life to save the dragon baby. Inside the egg, Amy's device began to glow. Millions of tiny machines flowed out of it like a silver river. They were not just nanobots now, but every kind of small technology the humans had. I found the baby dragon, Steve called out, but it's not moving. What they found broke their hearts. The baby dragon was the smallest of the 3, and it was curled up in a ball like it was trying to hide. Its scales were completely dark, and its eyes were closed. The void spawn covered it like a thick blanket. Is it still alive? Carlos asked. Amy checked her readings. Barely. Its life signs are so weak I can hardly detect them. The human technology spread out and began to attack the void spawn. But these creatures were different from the ones in the other eggs. They had been feeding longer, and they were stronger and smarter. They fought back against the machines with organized attacks. We're not winning, Amy said with worry. There are too many of them, and they're too strong. Outside the egg, young Zephyr began to sing. Her voice was clear and bright, like spring water over stones. The other dragons joined her, using the last of their strength to help the humans. But even with the dragon song helping them, the human technology was losing the battle. The void spawn were destroying the machines faster than they could destroy the creatures. We need more power, Amy said desperately. Steve looked at the dying baby dragon. It was so small and helpless. He made a decision that would change everything. Amy, can you connect our life support systems to the baby dragon? What do you mean? Our suits keep us alive in space. What if we share that life with the baby dragon? Give it some of our strength? Steve, that could kill you, Carlos said. Better than letting the baby die, Steve replied. Amy's hands moved quickly over her device. I can do it, but we'll all have to do it together. Share our life force 3 ways. Do it, all 3 humans said at the same time. Amy connected their suits to the baby dragon's life systems. Immediately, they felt weaker as some of their own life flowed into the small creature. But something amazing happened. The baby dragon's eyes opened for the first time. They were not gold or blue like its siblings, but silver like starlight. And when the baby dragon saw the 3 humans who were giving their lives to save it, something magical occurred. The baby dragon began to sing. Its voice was small and weak, but it was the most beautiful sound any of them had ever heard. The song joined with the adult dragons outside, and suddenly all the dragons were singing together, 4 adults and 1 baby, their voices creating a harmony that shook the stars. The combined song, powered by human technology and human sacrifice, created a wave of pure life energy. The void spawn screamed as the wave hit them, and one by one they turned to dust and blew away. "It's working," Amy said with wonder. "The baby is getting stronger." The small dragon stood up for the first time in its life. Its silver scales began to glow brighter and brighter until the inside of the egg was filled with beautiful light. The baby dragon looked at Steve, Carlos, and Amy with eyes full of love and gratitude. "Mission accomplished," Steve said weakly. When the three humans returned to normal size, they found a celebration waiting for them. All three dragon eggs were hatching at the same time. The shells cracked and fell away, and three baby dragons stepped out into the world. The first baby, with golden scales like its mother, stretched its wings and roared with joy. The twin dragons, one gold and one blue, danced around each other happily. And the smallest baby, with silver scales that sparkled like stars, sang its beautiful song. Vorthik lifted her great head and looked at Jake and his crew. Her golden eyes were bright with tears of happiness. "You have given me back my children," she said. "You have given my race a future. How can I ever repay such a gift?" "Just be happy," Jake said. "That's payment enough." The baby dragons ran around their mother, playing and laughing. They were the size of elephants now, but they moved like puppies. Every few minutes, they would run over to the humans and make happy sounds, like they were saying thank you. "What happens now?" Lisa asked. "Now my children grow strong," Vorthik said, "and they will remember the humans who saved their lives. This story will be told among dragons for all time." Young Zephyr walked over to Jake. "I want to come with you," she said. "I want to learn more about these amazing humans." Jake smiled. "You're welcome to join us. But we should warn you. We get into a lot of trouble." "Good," Zephyr said. "Trouble is where heroes are made." As the human ship prepared to leave the planet, Jake received a message from Earth Command. There were 17 more dragon distress calls across the galaxy. Other dragons needed help, and now everyone knew that humans were the ones who could provide it. Jake looked at his crew. They were tired but happy. They had done something that had never been done before. They had shown that humans and dragons could work together to achieve the impossible. "Ready for our next adventure?" he asked. "Always," his crew answered together. The ship lifted off into space, carrying its human crew and one young dragon toward their next mission. Behind them, 3 baby dragons played in the light of an alien sun while their ancient mother watched with joy. The dragons were no longer alone. They had found friends among the stars.